Welcome to Horror Year, where every story is a journey into the unknown. If you're brave enough to face your darkest fears and uncover the most chilling tales, you've come to the right place. So, dim the lights, turn up the volume, and subscribe to Horror Year. Your journey into terror begins now. Daniel wasn't happy when his late aunt left him an old, rickety house. The house was remote on the outside of town and encircled by dense forest that kept out the sun, making the interior of the house always dark. Despite the house's unsettling ambiance and the odd creaks and groans that seemed to reverberate throughout it, he decided to move there because he needed a change. Following the initial nights, Daniel became aware of an oddity. The sound of a door creaking open somewhere in the home, followed by the sluggish, dragging shuffle of footsteps in the corridor, was a familiar sound to him every night at midnight. Every time he waited to hear where the steps would take him, lying awake with his heart racing. However, they consistently appeared to pause outside the door of his bedroom. He initially sought to dismiss it as a figment of his imagination. However, the footsteps continued, becoming louder every night, and he started to get a shiver every time they came close to his door. A voice within his head murmured, "Always lock the door," as a sense of dread descended upon him. He made the decision to look into it one evening. With a flashlight in hand, he slipped into the corridor while his heart pounded. The darkness was deeper than ever, and the home was completely quiet. The front door was closed when he came down to it, but as he turned to go back to his room, he saw something that chilled him to the bone. The interior of the entrance door was covered in deep, jagged scratches. They appeared to have been created by fingernails, frenzied and desperate, as though someone had attempted to scratch their way out. "This can't be real," he muttered to himself as he retreated, as a chill went down his spine. Daniel had a dream about his aunt that night. Her eyes were wide with fright as she stood in the corridor, her face gaunt and pale. Her fingers were shaking and icy when she grabbed for him. "Daniel, always lock the door," she muttered. "He is on his way to get you." His aunt's voice was still playing in his head as he woke up in a cold sweat. However, the nightmare was so vivid and genuine that he was unable to get rid of the fear it had left him with. He chose to go into his aunt's background because he was desperate for answers. He searched through her old possessions for days before discovering a dusty leather-bound diary in the attic. When a man named Mr. Lorne began coming to the house, his aunt noted in her diary that she no longer felt comfortable there. For years, the people in the town had been whispering about him, saying he was a terrible guy with a dark past who experimented with evil practices. She claims that Mr. Lorne passed away inexplicably and that his body was never located, leaving only his nails stuck in his own home's floors, seemingly pulled into the earth. Since then, she had locked her doors every night out of concern that he would return. Daniel was terrified and heeded his aunt's caution. He double-checked his door before going to bed each night to make sure it was locked. However, he unintentionally left it unlocked one night because he was tired. He was awakened around midnight by the creaking sound of the front door opening. His heart stopped as he sat up in bed. The sound of heavy, dragging footsteps reverberated down the corridor, louder, more threatening, and much closer than before. To call someone, anyone, he grasped for his phone, but it fell from his grasp and clattered to the ground. The sound of footsteps intensified, with a shadowy figure standing over his bedroom door. The figure entered. Like a puppet on chains, it was tall and hunched, moving slowly and strangely. Its eyes were black, empty pits that seemed to devour the feeble light, and its pallid skin was pulled too tightly over its bones. "You forgot to lock the door," it muttered, its lips parting in a twisted smile that exposed rows of decaying teeth. Its voice sounded like a crackling wood. Daniel scurried back, paralyzed by terror, his hands looking for anything to protect him. The apparition advanced one more step and extended a bony hand. However, as soon as it made contact with him, he experienced an unexpected surge of warmth, like though someone were drawing him back. He recognized his aunt's face in the dim light. She was there, protecting him with a strong yet translucent form. "You are not welcome here," she replied, her eyes meeting the figure's, her voice quivering with dread and determination. The figure screamed horribly and retreated, bending and twisting until it was only a black mist. It disappeared into the darkness and faded into the floor. The stifling cold subsided and the room became quiet. Daniel's aunt said, "Always lock the door," as she turned to face him and her face softened. Then she was gone. Daniel left the house and its dark secrets behind when he moved out the following morning. Years later, though, he still remembers his aunt's warning. Knowing that some things are better left out, for good, he locks his doors every night without fail. And that brings us to the end of today's delightful story. I really hope it had you on the edge of your seat. If you liked this story, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. It means a lot to me. And if you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. There's always an exciting surprise waiting just around the corner and you won't want to miss it. Do you have a spooky story to share or a fun idea for our next tale? Feel free to share in the comments below. I'm really curious to know what gives you the creeps the most. And as always, take care, keep exploring. And remember, sometimes the most chilling tales are the ones left untold. Catch you in the next one, if you're up for it.